We're only 2 days into this week and already have plenty of news items to discuss for the weekly news roundup, as it were. The first one on the agenda is an AMD and nVidia sort of rivalry, as you might expect, between them. This is something that happens a lot, where one of them will try and snipe the other one for coverage and for spectacle in the industry. And for now, this is happening next week on the 28th, February 28th, where AMD will be hosting its Capsaicin event, which seems to be becoming an annual thing for the RTG group, or Radeon Technologies, the graphics group. And nVidia will be hosting what it's calling a GeForce GTX gaming celebration. What exactly that entails, we do not yet know. It could be the usual battleship or aircraft carrier celebration that they've done in the past, which seems certainly bombastic. Or it could actually be some kind of product announcement, which would certainly be more interesting to all of us. So we're not sure what that is just yet, but it will be held on the same day as Capsaicin, and this is really just more of an interesting thing to look at in the industry, where one of the two caught wind of what the other was doing and announced their event and started sending out invites. So I'm not sure who came up with their event first, but it is not uncommon for the other vendor to then step in, do their own event, and fight for coverage. So kind of interesting in that regard. This is also something we see with product launches where, especially on NVIDIA's side, and this is maybe some topic for our Sunday videos in the future, but where NVIDIA, even with Kaby Lake, just so happened to announce their 1050 and 1050 Ti laptops on the same day. With AMD's announcements, they tend to announce things the next day, the same day. So it's a very interesting cycle of competing with one another for news. So February 28th, set your calendars for that. We will be out in the area, in the San Francisco area. Actually, we're here right now as well. We'll be at the events covering them, so you'll be able to find that coverage, as always, on gamersnexus.net. There are 48 total AIB partners, or add-in board partners, the vendors who make the graphics cards. And according to John Petty Research, which usual grain of salt with their findings, but according to JPR, the GPU sales, AIB sales specifically, increased for Q4 of 2016. JPR says AIB shipments peaked in 1999 with 114 million units, and for perspective, in 2015, we saw just 44 million units shipped, again according to JPR. Q4 2016 showed a 5 to 6% growth in AIB sales, partly due to the expected holiday buy-in, but it was also above the average growth rate for the last few years. According to the report, AIB shipments in the Q4 of 2015 versus Q4 of 2016 year over year posted a growth of 36%, so a total of 46% total attach rate of AIBs to systems. The all-time high was 63% in Q1 2008, but IGPs and other market factors have eaten away at that attach rate for AIBs to the complete systems. Market trends show AMD growing from 21.6% in the previous year in terms of total market share of graphics cards sold to 29.5% in the Q4 of 2016, with NVIDIA, of course, taking over the remaining 70% or so. It's a bit late in the game now for the RX 460, but MSI has got two new ones announced. They are 2GB and 4GB models, both of the 896 core variant, not the new expanded variant of the 460. And the only interesting factor here is that they are half-height models. So these are smaller form factor RX 460 video cards that are intended, of course, for use in things like SFF PCs or HTBCs, a growing market right now. The units are 1090 MHz base clock, 1200 MHz boost clock, again, 896 cores, and I guess the only other metric of note, or spec of note, is that they are DVI and HDMI. There's no DisplayPort on these, but they're half height, so you don't have a whole lot of room for those I/O options anyway. Gabe Newell says that Valve remains optimistic about VR, but is, quote, pretty comfortable with the idea that VR will turn out to be a complete failure. This is following some controversy over the fact that there are no public sales figures for really any VR device from Oculus or Valve in particular, which are, of course, the two main ones that we're looking at for the gaming market and the PC space. The Htc Vive has really only rumored figures at about 140,000 total units shipped, with nothing official to back that up. If it turns out to be true that there are lower sales than expected, which is probably a safe bet, because if they were really high, you would certainly hear Valve or anyone else bragging about it to no end. But if it turns out to be true that they're lower volume, the most likely reasons for that would probably be, one, cost, especially for the Vive, setup space requirements for the Vive or the Rift with the new touch controllers. And of course, it's just a new thing. And whenever you have a new thing, it's not going to be an easy time entering the market, particularly when there's a high startup cost to buy it as a user and a high investment cost for your PC. There's not a huge amount of content out there. There is a lot of great VR content, but work with me here. VR enthusiasts, you know what I'm talking about. There's a long way to go before developers really crack the new formula for how to build games in this format. So Valve is hedging their bets and saying that they're okay with it either way. Synology, as a show of good faith, is extending its warranty by 1 year on the DS415 Plus, DS1515 Plus, which we actually have, so this does interest us, the DS1815 Plus, and 2415 Plus, and then some RS units as well. The reason they're extending the warranty, again as a show of good faith, is because of the recent Intel Atom CPU defects, or errata issues anyway, where the C2538 CPU is showing some chance of endangering data or just kind of outright dying. Synology says that over the last few years it has observed, analyzed all of its data for those units that I just listed, and has determined that they are not at risk of data loss. It has determined that those units are within their spec and their quality standards, and they don't really seem to think that there's a need for any chaos surrounding those units. That said, they're expanding the warranty by 1 year, so owners of the units hopefully feel a bit more assured, but just be careful with your data for any type of RAID, Synology, or otherwise that's on those Intel Atom CPUs that are affected. So that is it for this news roundup. As always, check back regularly throughout the week for additional coverage, reviews, things like that. Traveling right now, if that's not obvious by the limited light setup. But we'll be back shortly and have more reviews, teardowns, and things like that for you. Subscribe for more. Go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out directly. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.